are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar this afternoon about the ICats Fellowship Program 2014. My name is Tom Kagerer. I'm CEO at LGT Venture Philanthropy and the director of the ICats Program. Used to be an ICAT on my own in the first year when the program was initiated in 2009. Working in Cape Town in South Africa with a local social enterprise incubator, and I'm looking forward to this webinar today and give you answers to the questions that you have prior to your application or prior to joining us in the program. There was a high demand for the webinar, so we had to change the tool that we use because there was a restriction of participants. Many of you that have registered got the email from Nina earlier today. So I expect a couple of people to arrive whilst we are talking, but the webinar is recorded. We will upload it to YouTube, so anybody should have a chance to listen to it and get all the information. We also prepared a presentation that will be distributed to you after the presentation. We decided to do this in a webinar format. We would like to answer most of the questions that you provided prior to this webinar. You also have the possibility to add additional questions to the questions area in your control panel. So Nina, who is the coordinator of the webinar, will coordinate the messages that you send in. We will probably not be able to answer all messages that come in on the fly. However, we will again try to answer these questions after the fellowship, after this webinar. So I hope you are familiar with the GoToWebinar tool, that you see how to raise a question. We have 2 hours. I don't know if we need all the time, but we blocked our time here, so it should be enough time for you and for us to go into all the details that you are interested in. So I introduced myself and the webinar. I would like to now give you an overview of what we touch upon in this webinar. I structured the webinar in 4 different sections. So we have a program overview where I would like you to introduce you a bit more to the program so you can hear it through my voice what the program is all about. I think that's good for you to have a good understanding how the program is embedded in the overall activities of LGT Venture Philanthropy. Then we go into the processes around application, selection, and preparation. Most questions came around these steps in order to become an ICats Fellow in the next couple of months. We touch a bit upon the fellowship itself. I share some experiences with you that we captured over the last couple of years since we started the program in 2009, and then I have some facts and figures around the program, some statistics, as well as some insights on what candidates actually do after their fellowship in the last section. So we can then open up for questions that come in on the fly afterwards if there's enough time. I will try to answer the questions that were sent in this individual section. So maybe after each section I will take some time to go through your questions and make sure that there's no question outstanding. Good. So who are we, LGT Venture Philanthropy? We are an impact investor, and our mission is to increase the quality of life of less advantaged people. Our approach is to scale proven local solutions So we have a team of 22 people that are based around the world. So we are active in Latin America, in Africa, in India, in China, Southeast Asia. So we have people in these countries that are using their networks, using their presence in the field in order to find high potential organizations that can address social or environmental problems in a significant and a scalable way. So that's what we like to do at LGT Venture Philanthropy, to find organizations with a proven model that now need our resources in order to scale and provide their solutions to many more people in order to have significant impact. We are quite broad in our themes, so we work in renewable energy, water, education, we have nutrition, agriculture deals, health, so it's quite a broad coverage. So I think that's also quite appealing to people who are interested in us and in the ICats program, both in regards to regions as well as in regards to the topics. We can quite offer a good selection of opportunities. Currently we have 26 active investments in our main portfolio. I mentioned main portfolio because there are like two different types of portfolios at LGT Venture Philanthropy. The main portfolio, which contains the deals that I just described, local proven solutions that we help to scale. However, we also experienced over the last years that there is a demand of helping social enterprises at an earlier stage, and that's why we started in 2011 with an accelerator program where we send ICats, mainly with a business consulting background, into the different regions where we have accelerator programs. They're basically the ones that are also offered through the job portal. And these business consultants then work with earlier stage social enterprises in accelerating their business models, market research, etc. So in that portfolio, we have currently 5 earlier stage organizations selected in 2012. And we're currently in the final process of nominating the 2013 candidates for acceleration in the next couple of weeks and months. So that's a bit like an overview of how we work and who we are, in which areas we are active, and what's our mission. How do we do this? And I mentioned that we support earlier stage social organization and organizations with a proven model. We always do this through our 3 main pillars of support. We, just one second. We support organizations through financial capital. So as we invest both in NGOs as well as in for-profit organizations, we can actually provide loans, equity investments, as well as grants to organizations that we support. We are sometimes would refer to it like an impact-first investor. So that means that we provide capital, financial capital, to organizations that have the potential to significantly create positive impact and not to mainly create a financial return. So that's why our financial capital support is quite broad, as mentioned. Next to the financial capital, we also provide know-how to these organizations, and know-how on the one hand through our local investment managers that are quite knowledgeable in impact investing, so they can provide hands-on know-how to these portfolio organizations, either through board seats or through an engaged investment approach where our investment managers talk to the local organizations on a weekly basis. On top of this know-how, we initiated the ICats program. And ICats stands for Impact Catalyst. And the main objective is to provide additional professional know-how that the organizations are lacking in order to scale their organizations in a efficient and effective manner. So many organizations have difficulties in attracting the right talents, good talents like you, who have a significant experience, have a good education, and are willing to help them on a relatively low financial remuneration basis. So that's why we initiated the ICats program, and so that's our main program to provide know-how to the organizations. And then the third pillar is providing access to networks to our portfolio organizations. That means access to additional funders, like for co-investments. We have expert networks that can help the social organizations with additional know-how, etc. And that's like an important slide or an important illustration, because the ICats program is an integral part of LGT VP's investment support. So we are not like a fellowship program that takes like some social organizations and connects them with talents that are interested in working with them. No, in our case, the ICats program is embedded in what we do. So you will work with portfolio organizations of the LGT VP portfolio, where we have a long-lasting interest in working with them and creating a maximum positive impact with them. So you have like a very critical, or you play a very critical role in this overall investment approach of LGT VP, which I think is quite an interesting aspect for the program. So that's how we work in general. So what's the ICats program? How is it structured? I mean, I already talked about the objective to provide additional know-how. The ICats program goes through like different stages. I mean, at the moment we are in this selection period, or even like earlier, like in the application period. But once like all applications are submitted by mid of next week, then we go through a selection process in collaboration with our host organizations. We will look closer into that in a minute. We have a close preparation process where we help ICats to prepare for their engagement. Then we have like 11 to 14 months, depending on the two different types of fellowships that we offer, on the ground, full-time engagements, where basic living costs are covered through a stipend, and people who engage with the program, who participate in the program, get ongoing support from our investment managers on the ground, as well as through online trainings or sessions that we conduct throughout the fellowship year. So the key design criteria for the Impact Fellowship Program is that you work 11 months full-time on the ground with one of the LGT Venture Philanthropy portfolio organizations to scale their impact. So in that case, I repeat myself, but it's important that everybody understands that. It's like the more mature organizations that have already a proven model, that are ready to scale because their model is scalable, their management team is capable to scale their solutions, and we provide them resources. And one of the resources, ICats, in order to help them scale. So that's the Impact Fellowship Program. The second fellowship program is the Accelerator Fellowship, where Accelerator Fellows work for 14 months full-time in the field, and they work as business consultants directly with the early stage social organizations that have been nominated to the Smiling World Accelerator Program of LGT VP. So it's a different type of program, because whereas in the Impact Fellowship Program, you might work on a specific domain in the company, like finance or marketing or supply chain management. The Accelerator Fellows have a broader scope of their support because the organizations are earlier stage, hence they need more broader advice how to get their organization to the next level. Overall, I mentioned, and that's applicable for both fellowship programs. Overall, we have, I mentioned that the program is an integral part of the LGT VP investment support, so that applies to both programs. It also applies to both programs that only people with at least 2 years of professional experience and a high sensitivity for human as well as organizational culture can join the program. On average, I would say people who join the program or who gets nominated to the program have 4 to 5 years of work experience after their university degree. The candidates are selected in collaboration with the social organization who posted the jobs. It's very important because we don't push candidates to our organizations. We want the organization to fully commit to the candidates to bring in. This has the advantage for the participant because then you know that you are not just like a free resource to the organization. The organization kind of like accepts you because you're for free, and then they try to find out what they are going to do with you. But as they have to cover 100% of the engagement costs, there's a high commitment of the organization to bring you into their organization. So that applies mainly for the Impact Fellowship. For the Accelerator Fellowship, LGT VP is covering the engagement costs. However, people who get nominated to the Accelerator, believe me, they are very happy about the support that we provide to them. And so as there is more like a consultant type of engagement, I think that's less of an integration and acceptance issue than we could face in the Impact Fellowship Program. Then also applicable for both programs that our investment managers that have a deep knowledge about the organization and the culture and the environment that you work in have become mentors of the participants. And mentorship means that they support ICats candidates throughout the engagement with conflicts that they experience with the organization, with some issues integrating into a country, with concerns, maybe security concerns. So mentors are there in order to work with the ICats. However, it's I wouldn't say a passive role, but the main role is by the ICAT to flag issues that they want to address with the ICAT's mentor. So it's not like a typical mentorship program where you sit together once a week, where you define objectives for the next week, etc. So it's more like we are there for you if you have issues. There is a monthly mentor call, but it's not like a highly engaged mentorship approach. Both candidates for the fellowship, for the Impact Fellowship as well as for the Accelerator Fellowship join a 5-day orientation workshop here in Zurich in January. The date I will tell you in a second. And here you will meet your peers, candidates of the ICats program, which is great for you to connect to this group of people. This connection or this network will be very helpful once you're on the ground to exchange experiences and to feel that you belong to a cohort, to a group. So that's a fantastic opportunity to meet a lot of passionate people from around the world. And you will also meet the LGT VP team because the orientation workshop overlaps with the annual team meeting of LGT Venture Philanthropy, where you then have the opportunity to meet the investment managers on the ground, and you will also meet your mentor that is in charge with you, in charge for your mentorship throughout the year in person here in Zurich. So that's usually quite a powerful and inspiring 5 days that we join together here. And last but not least, it's important when we talk about the key design criteria of the fellowship that ICats engagements are temporary, mainly because we don't want to distort local job markets. So ultimately, we want to make sure that ICats have like a temporary impact with the organization to build up some capacity there. But ultimately we would like to see local talents from their regions take on the responsibility for a specific domain, because obviously that's another objective of us when we work with those organizations, that people from their regions have access to these type of jobs. So here's some key facts and figures around the ICats package. First, the dates for the 2014 fellowship. The orientation workshop will take place here in Zurich from the 9th of January to the 14th of January. It's a mandatory workshop. You will be invited to come to Zurich, so we pay for flight, accommodation and food, and it's a very important part of the preparation process. So that's a mandatory workshop for all participants. The fellowship itself starts on the 3rd of February 2014, and for the Impact Fellowship it ends at the 12th of December 2014. For the Accelerator Fellowship it ends in 27th of March. You might ask, why is one fellowship longer than the other? With the Impact Fellowship, the standard case or the default case is that a fellow works with one organization on one topic in 1 year, and then this topic is handed over to someone in the organization. So no need to, so the handover of the work is happening within the fellowship, within the 11 months of the fellowship. With the Accelerator Fellows, it's different because one Accelerator Fellow needs to hand over his or her deliverables and insights and knowledge about the nominee or the accelerators to the next generation of Accelerator Fellows in the next year. So in order to have like an overlap of the people that are Accelerator Fellows this year and the people who get nominated for next year's program, there is a 2-month overlap. So when you become an Accelerator Fellow in February, there will be the Accelerator Fellow that is on the ground right now, will still be there for 2 months in order to hand over all the work and integrate you into that role. So that's why there's a different time schedule around that. Many people asked about the remuneration package, or like the living stipend. It is very important to understand that this program is a pro bono program that provides the coverage of the basic living costs that are required for a single person to be on the ground and to live like in a safe but normal way in their country. So the stipend covers housing, might be like a shared flat, provides food, so you can go to the supermarkets and buy food, transportation, so you can take buses, trains to get to work. In some cases, a car is necessary when there is no public transportation. This is then something we need to discuss in detail. Communication, which includes phone and internet, and some additional expenses like ATM fees. Some people confuse LGT Venture Philanthropy with LGT. We are not the bank, and we are not running our organization on the basis of a private client bank that gets like that has like lots of profits every year. So we run our organization on an extremely tight budget that includes our own salaries. I just want to avoid that people look at this program and think that's like a program from a bank, and we cover like additional costs like flying in the family, or providing courses for if the family or kids travel, or like shipping a container with equipment like furniture, etc., to the destination. So all of that is like it's just not feasible that we can cover these costs. There was one question, if one is not speaking the language, if we will be able to provide language courses. That's all not part of our budget. So it's actually quite simple for us, because we provide costs for housing, food, transportation, communication, and smaller expenses like ATM fees are calculated in the stipend amount. The stipend amount is paid in local currency, so you don't get paid in your own currency, or you don't get paid in US dollars, because you have to live in the country, and that's why it's important that we have the local currency as the benchmark in order to calculate the living costs. And you shouldn't be reliant on exchange, on currency exchange rates. So when they go up or down, then you might have less or more money to live in the country. It's also important that as the organization is covering 100% of the stipend amount, the organization is in charge of defining how much they think you need in order to live in the country. So we don't have a stake in that, and the organization will make this decision and will offer that to you in the interview when the final candidate, or when the final conversations are taking place. Then latest by then you should know what the stipend is, so you can make a decision based on that. It can, could be even the case that in the same city, fellows earn differently who work in different organizations. Because obviously when there is like an organization that says, okay, I can only afford a fellow based on the minimum living costs, then they might offer that to you. Maybe another organization might be willing to give you a bit more flexibility and offers you a higher stipend. But look at it as like you apply to a marketing position at BMW or at Mercedes-Benz. There might be different salaries that they offer to you, even if you work in the same city. In regards to travel, I mentioned that we are covering all the costs to travel to Zurich to the workshop. There will be one return ticket paid by the local organization. Obviously, we cover like economy tickets to travel to the fellowship destinations. That's not necessarily always a flight. I mean, if you're from India and you work in India, it might be even not existing if you already live in the same city. But often we also have people who have to take overseas flights, and there you get like one ticket to travel to the country and back. There are no additional trips covered either by the organization or by the program. We provide an insurance package, so there is a health insurance that is also covered for you throughout your engagement, and it's we have like a group insurance policy with a German group insurance company that are active in insuring aid workers since 30 years. So it's a very good insurance coverage that is tailored to these type of engagements. It's basic, so it's not like a private insurance, but it covers like the necessary health expenses that can occur whilst you're in the country. Your visa issuing fees are also covered, and that's basically the package that we provide to you during the fellowship. Necessary vaccinations or any other costs that you could think of are not covered by us. I hope that answers many of the questions around the package, and if there's still something outstanding, feel free to raise a question around that. As we are still in the overall introduction of the program, I also would like to give you an overview of the track record or the footprint of ICats. Here you see the different organizations in the different locations where ICats were active over the last 5 years. In total, including the existing cohort, there are like 75 people who worked in total with 30 portfolio organizations, and cumulatively these organizations impacted about 8 million people over the last 5 years. So significant support of ICats to this number of people that now live a more decent life than before. And to put faces to the number, that's an overview or like an illustration of how people look like that have engaged into the program. Good. So let's dive into the application selection and preparation stage. I start with a timeline. There were some questions around that. Currently we are in the application stage of the fellowship program. So you registered on the platform, you either already submitted an application or you will do that in the next couple of days. So application deadline is the 31st of July, which is next Wednesday. This is to send in applications. It's a different activity than registering to the platform. So you have to submit your application by the end of July, which is next Wednesday. Then in August, we do the internal evaluation of all applications, which means that our investment managers who are in charge of the organizations that you applied for will screen your application information and will make short lists of candidates that they would like to interview. So in September, we will conduct interviews, and there's like 2 rounds of interviews. The investment manager of LGT VP will conduct a first interview, and based on this first interviews, there will be a couple of candidates that are forwarded to the host organization in order to do the final selection of the candidates. This applies mainly for the Impact Fellowship. For the Accelerator Fellowship, the local organization, the acceleratees, they don't do interviews with you. However, we work with local partners like incubators or hubs on the ground, and they will likely do an interview with you too, because we set up this accelerator program in collaboration with these partners. Hence, they have like a vested interest in the new people that come into this accelerator program. So expect at least 2 interviews with us, as well as with the local host organization or the local partners in the accelerator program. And then, so up to there, I can give you a relatively clear timeline. then it gets a bit less structured because, you know, recruiting process is a highly dynamic and flexible process. So sometimes we go with candidates through the whole stage, and then they are withdrawing their nomination because of personal reasons, reasons that they were surprised that they were nominated, and find that now that it's like time to put a signature under the contract where people then commit to the program for 11 to 14 months, it's maybe not the right thing, or it's not the right time. So I encourage you to really think about it if you really want to do it. Like, put yourself into the position of being nominated and sitting in front of a piece of paper and signing this document. We had situations where people started talking to their partners only after they were nominated, and then their partners freaked out because they didn't like what the candidate proposed to their partners. We had candidates, they decided that they can't put the burden, like initially they thought they can put the burden on their families to be away for a year, and they thought, okay, maybe they can have some trips back and forth paid personally. That's also something that can happen when you don't think about it, that once you're nominated you actually find out that this is not going to happen. There was another question about when you're like just graduated from your business school and you have to repay your loan. Are there any examples? So we have some examples where people got nominated and then withdrew because they just realized that they can't make it happen with a pro bono engagement where only basic living costs are covered. There are a couple of other examples that got quite creative about that. I think our best example was one fellow from the US who then went on a personal fundraising tour with friends and family. They were helping him to get through this 1 year and covering costs and paying back these loans or contributions from friends and family afterwards. So you can become creative. It's just something that you need to do. You need to find a way to either convince your bank that you can stop repayment for your student loan by a year because you want to engage in this program. I don't know how flexible the different banks where you have student loans are in that regard. We are obviously happy to write to you a letter that confirms that, what you're doing, the nature of this engagement, the payment of this engagement, so maybe that could help. Or you go on to a personal fundraising tour. So these are like reasons why people, like examples of reasons why people actually withdraw their nomination, and then obviously we go back to the second best or the third best candidate and make a nomination and or offer the fellowship program to these persons. So that's why nomination process can actually run into October. In some cases, when there's like a really tricky situation, it might even only be decided end of October or even like early November. So it's important for you that if you're maybe not like the first choice candidate, that I mean not first choice, I mean like with the primary candidate that was offered the position, that you have to wait a bit and you have to just like accept the silence because there might be the opportunity to still get nominated to the program to that position. Or what also happens in the background, that if we have like good candidates that might not be nominated to a position where they applied for, that we might see another opportunity to get this candidate on the fellowship program. So you can be assured that for the top candidates applying to this program, we try a lot in order to get you on the program. Sometimes there are even like positions that are created afterwards by the skills and capabilities. A great candidate that was not nominated to the program at that stage brings in, so it's a lot is possible. So please stay patient. All people who applied will be informed by us, the positive or not so positive feedback. But you need to be a bit patient. I know it's like unpleasant, but you need to be a bit patient during those weeks and months. We will keep you updated throughout the process, but if you don't hear from us, then you can rely that there is nothing to be communicated at that stage. So once nomination is done, then the preparation stage starts. During the preparation stage, we will work with you on signing the contracts, getting the visa, getting the visa lined up for the destination country, link you up with the local contacts so you can start looking into accommodation. Look into vaccination, sign the insurance, book the flights, all of that. It's important. We support you in that, but we are not doing it for you. You can imagine that like a program that runs on a tight budget do not have the resources to do these type of things for 20, maybe 30 participants in the program. So you have the main responsibility to apply for the visa. It's the main responsibility to find housing. It's the main responsibility to get your vaccinations in time, and we can help you with our experience. We will provide FAQ documents where the previous fellows wrote in their experiences, their contacts, their recommendations to you. You also have access to the current fellows on the ground, so you can also touch base with them and discuss. Maybe you can take over their flat. Maybe they have good recommendations for the visa application process, etc. So you will get a lot of input from our side, but ultimately it's your responsibility to conduct all those activities. Once that's the goal is to finalize all those activities before Christmas, so around middle of December, because then the final activity starts for the orientation workshop, where you also need to prepare a bit of work. And then you enjoy time with family and friends around late December, and then in January you fly to Zurich, and then afterwards you start the fellowship program in the field. That's a bit the process and the timeline. And now give me some time to go through any open questions that I might not covered for these type of processes that I just talked about. And there was one question, maybe quite a special question, shouldn't apply to too many, but if you have been nominated to the program last year, but out of personal reasons, maybe some family issues, you were not able to join the program or to accept the nomination, if you were able to apply again this year, and the answer is yes. I mean, if you were able to demonstrate to us that you just that you had a good reason for not accept the nomination, and that this was not foreseeable before that you applied, then obviously it's not your fault that you can't accept the nomination. However, if people just withdraw without a proper reason, then of course we will probably not be so welcoming to go through the process again with this candidate, and maybe run into the same issue again. Then an interesting question about the fact that you can apply to 3 ICats Fellowship positions, and if there is a sequence that should be prepared or provided to these 3 applications. It's important to understand that you can only physically apply to 1 application, okay, to 1 position. So you can submit only 1 application, but in this application form for that 1 position you can add 2 more alternative positions that you might be interested in, that you're interested in case that you were not considered for your primary application. Okay, so I think that obviously like the position that you're most interested in should be the one that you actually submit the application for. So you click on the job, you log into the member portal, you click on the job, and then you see like the apply button at the bottom of the job. So that's your primary application. And then you have like 2 alternative applications, and then we didn't come up with a sequence, but naturally I would say the job that is like the second most interesting to you comes in second place, and then you have like the third one as the second alternative option. We will, and I mentioned that before, we will also come up to candidates with suggestions if we think that they have a good experience, but not for the application, or not, we will not offer the fellowship program to the positions where you applied for, but we might be able to offer you something else. So in such a case, we might come up to you and say, candidate C, unfortunately we cannot offer you the position 1, 2, 3, but there might be another option than 4, and then we can look into that together and follow the process from there. There was another question around like a special position for finance manager fellowship in Kitale, Kenya with Western Seed Company. When you look at the introduction of that job, and also like in the overview, this is flagged a bit differently. It's called like a partner fellowship, because in some circumstances, we also offer fellowship positions to organizations from partner investors. So in that case, our partner Voxtra, an impact investor from Scandinavia, approached us if they can join the fellowship program next year. So they have like a company that they are invested into, and that they also need additional know-how, and in such cases where we think that the overall setup of this organization is compatible to the overall fellowship program in regards to the quality of the organization, in regards to the commitment of the organization, etc., then we also offer that. And there was the question in this specific situation that it's like a 2-year program and it starts already in October, and how does that fit in with the 5-day orientation workshop in Zurich in January? We would still consider or we still invite this person to come to Zurich for the workshop. Obviously there is already, this person might be already 3 months in the field, and some of the information that we provide during the preparation workshop might be a bit out of date for a candidate that is already 3 months in the field, but we still would invite this person here. It's a bit of a different setup, but I think if you're interested in that, it's a great organization, has a great impact. It's the only opportunity that we have that is for 2 years, because it's with this partner. So I would also highly encourage you to look into that. Yes, I explained how the 2-stage interview process works. First interview with LGT VP, not in Zurich, but the investment managers, and the second interview with the host partner. There is another question, if it is required, if you want to become an impact mentor, that you have, if you had to go through an ICats Fellowship. No, it's not. The fellowship program is for people who want to have a highly engaged in the field engagement with our portfolio organization. The impact mentorship is something for people who want to support our portfolio organizations but are not able to spend full time for a longer period of time in the field. So these are people who maybe cut out a couple of hours every week or every month in order to work remotely with our portfolio organizations. It could be, one example is, it could be a lawyer that is reviewing contracts or terms and conditions. It could be a web developer who is working remotely with the portfolio organization to set up their website or to improve their website. So these type of remote opportunities are impact mentorships. You don't have to become an ICAT Fellow in order to engage with that program. With impact mentorships, we don't provide positions. If you're interested in that, then drop us an email as mentioned on the website, and then we can deal with it on a case-by-case basis. Another question, if there is an age limit to join the ICATS program. There's no age limit. There's only the requirement that you have to have a certain work experience. So there is a certain limit in regards I don't know now, my English is playing tricks with me. So there's no limit in age in regards if 50, 60, 70 you can join the program, but obviously you can't join the program if you're 15. Okay. And there was one question around the selection process. What is the most weighted factor in the selection process? I think there's not a single factor that I would consider as the most weighted factor in this process. However, I can, personal skills like social skills and the technical skills are very important. For me personally, I would prefer a candidate with outstanding social skills and okay technical skills over a person that has fantastic technical skills and not so good personal or social skills. The reason for that is that you go into an organization who is strongly growing. People who work in these organizations are highly committed to the cause. Many of them work for very low salary, are very well educated often, so could probably earn a lot more when they would work somewhere else, but they are very dedicated and very motivated and passionate about the cause of the company or the organization. So it's like a grown organization. People might have worked in the organization for quite a while, and then now someone from the outside, often also perceived as someone from the investor, comes in to the organization and is trying to change things. Because if we talk about building capacity for the people, it means changing things. If you, for example, come in as a finance expert and you introduce budgeting processes like forecasting processes, signing off budgets because maybe the organization didn't have it before, then obviously the people who were used to maybe just spend money might be a bit maybe irritated, maybe don't understand the necessity in the first place. So convincing the people and becoming like a real change agent in the organization requires a lot of sensitivity, a lot of social skills, and so that's why I think that's for me the key. If I have to choose one, then I would say social competency is the key most weighted factor in the selection process. Hope that this is giving you a bit more insight on that. Just a reminder, as there have been no questions added to the webinar from you, please, if there is anything that you want to ask in addition to the question that you send in, please type in the questions, and I'll get the questions forwarded to me by the coordinator of the meeting. So don't hesitate to type in what you want to ask. Then another question is, when approximately will I be able to know if I am admitted into the program? October, latest November. Then an interesting question about the language. How much chance will I be admitted into the specific programs, i.e. programs in Latin America where Spanish is required? Where language is required, people who have the language skills are highly, have like a strong advantage. I would not rule it out that a candidate will still be nominated, but in special regions, Latin America is one. Like the local language is extremely important. So I would say that a person who cannot speak Spanish and wants to work in Chile or in Colombia or in Peru, or doesn't speak Portuguese and wants to work in Brazil, has much less chances to get nominated to the program. It's a bit different in India with Hindi. Most people, most of the management teams that we work with speak fluent English. However, the people in the organization often don't. So it depends a bit on your role and how much you are involved with the people in the team, how important the local language is. So I can't give you a general rule of thumb, but or I can't give you a general rule, but the rule of thumb is that if we ask for a specific language and you don't have that, then your chances are lower. But I would not be discouraged to apply nevertheless. So no language classes covered by us. It's important. The language question actually is a good question to demonstrate or to highlight what kind of position that you're in. You have you come into the organization as probably one of the most experienced people in the organization. There might be a good management team, but many of the other people who work in the company do not have the education that you have and do not necessarily have the work experience that you have. So when you go into this organization, you have to build up relationships and you have to really transfer know-how in order to create the impact that you want to create, that we want to create, and that the organization is aiming to get out of you. That's why they join and participate in the program. So if you don't speak the language and you have to learn whilst you're on the ground, you're just it's not very easy for you to build up these relationships and to work with the people to transfer your know-how. So it is a very important part of your qualification to speak the language that is required. Another question, if you can apply for a position in a country where you currently live, or where you were born, where you're like a citizen of, yes, I would even say that it is welcome by us, as then you better understand the local context, you better understand the language, there is no visa issues, so we're welcoming it, but it's not the requirement. So here in this case, I would not say that it's like a strong advantage. I mean, if we have like two candidates that are equally experienced and that are equally capable of demonstrating their social intelligence, then probably a candidate from the local country has a slight advantage. But again, that should not discourage you from applying to those positions, because often we don't have the situation that we have this equally qualified, capable candidates. And if you look at the track record and then the cohorts, you see that there are a lot of people nominated to the program who are actually not coming from that country or from that region. Okay, that's all different questions. Okay, so these are these were the questions around the fellowship application, and evaluation and interview preparation process. So I hope that that presentation for that stage of the fellowship program helped you to understand better what happens over the next couple of weeks and months. And I see that there is one question. And just let me get this question. I read the question. Okay, so there's one question: if candidates with investment banking background have been previously accepted into the Accelerator Fellowship. The answer is yes, because I mean, as an investment banker, you probably have, when you, for example, work in private equity industry, then you have a lot of knowledge in regards to conducting due diligence, in doing like interviews with the organization, assessing their financials, assessing market penetration, market potential, and this is an important part of an accelerator fellow, because when you nominate new candidates, in order to nominate new candidates, and there's like an annual application cycle for new accelerators, this will be in the first couple of months of your fellowship an important task. So yes, that's feasible. And another question is, I'm interested to apply for Accelerator Fellow in Mexico or the Philippines, and I mentioned that in my recognition. So what happens if you apply for a country where there is no embassy in your country? How to get the visa then? So in this example, we have someone from Pakistan who is interested in applying for the accelerator program in Mexico, but there is no Mexican embassy in Pakistan. That's showcasing or highlighting the complexity of this visa process, because there are so many different different combinations of let's say international alliances or partnerships between countries. So my answer now to the question would be, if there is no embassy, what's the reason that there is no embassy? If the reason is that these two countries do not appreciate each other very well, and that's why Mexico has no embassy in Pakistan. Then I don't think that it will be highly likely that you will get, as a Pakistan citizen, a visa for Mexico. If it's due to other reasons, so that the two countries in principle appreciate the exchange of workforce and people, professionals that work from Pakistan in Mexico, then I would assume that there is some information available when you approach them, maybe another Mexican embassy, or directly approach Mexican foreign consul in Mexico to get instructions. But this is like a good example. We do in these type of setups, it's impossible to know them for us. We know them when we had a situation, so like in that case, if you apply and you manage to get a visa for Mexico, then we could actually then afterwards claim that we have a bit more information how a Pakistani can apply for a visa in Mexico, but we don't know all combinations. And we support, we give recommendations, but it's hard to answer how to get the visa then. Hope this answers the question. So let me see. Okay, no more questions. And there's one more question. Will selection interviews be conducted in English or the local language if there is a language requirement? We had interviews for Latin America that were conducted in Spanish or in Portuguese, because that was one key criteria to find out if the person speaks like a proper language, and that could happen. Might not be that both interviews will be conducted. Could be that the first one will be in English and the second one in Spanish. Could be vice versa, but it is a probability that this happens. So I'm struggling a little bit with the size of this question window, because I can hardly see the questions that are presented to me. Give me. Okay, another question. If I don't have high-profile consulting experience, but plenty of involvement with different social enterprises and investors in the last years, what are my chances for the accelerator fellowship position? I would say you have the same chances as someone that has a high-profile consulting experience. I mean, for us it is important that when we talk, that your application on the one hand reflects how you intend to consult social enterprises, so that you show your approach, show your experience in that. And I think that is more important for us than having the label of BCG or Bain or Accenture on your CV. So have it a go, I would say. Good. No more questions around that stage of the presentation. So I would then move on and would like to give you a bit more insight into the fellowship itself. I mean, I touched upon some of the topics already, but let's dive into it. I think it's valuable for you if we maybe repeat some things a couple of times. So the role of an ICAT, the main role for ICATs is to build capacity within the local organization. And I mentioned that, like through transferring professional know-how into the organization, to work with the local management as well as with the local team that can work with you, benefit from your know-how, benefit from your work style, benefit from maybe how disciplined you worked, just like you can become like a role model in the organization, how professional people work, and I think that both the team as well as the management team often benefit a lot of that inspiration, of this access to information, just like working alongside with you. Obviously, with your experience, you know how things work in the private sector, so you have tools, you have frameworks, you have guidelines, you have access to resources. It can be very helpful for organizations. So by sharing these corporate practices with them, they also increase their know-how and increase their capacity. Might also be through coaching or training of local teams. Again, if you come in as a finance expert and you want to upskill the local finance team next to the systems and processes that you will establish in the organization, you obviously will conduct trainings and coachings with the people who should follow these processes once you left the organization. Because that's extremely important for the ICats Fellows, that with everything that they do, they need to think, how should that going to work when I'm not there anymore? Because the last thing that we would like to create is a dependency on a person that has like the key know-how to run the organization efficiently. However, reality on the ground is that these organizations often do not have always the right people, do not always have for all the things that they need know-how. The people on board might be scarce resources, might be not there that they didn't find the right people yet. So one needs to be very smart and very foreseeing in order to like create things that even if there is no finance expert in the organization after you leave, still the management team will be able to work with those systems. So this is like a very important thinking and an attribute of an ICAT fellow to get into this mental state and envisage how the organization will work with these things that you want to set up once you left. On top of that, you also obviously are an ambassador. I mean, specifically the Accelerator Fellows have a lot of exposure in the countries. There are a lot of events through the partner that we work with in the Accelerator Program. There's a lot of exposure of LGT VP through the ICats Fellows. So you also like jump into the role of an ambassador of LGT VP. Extremely critical, and maybe I should add that to the question that I already answered before. What factors are important, or where do we look at closely throughout the selection process? Helping out when the organization needs a hand. Some people also refer to it to get your hands dirty. Be flexible in what you do. Don't look strangely at your supervisor when the supervisor asks you to do something where in your corporate life maybe someone else was meant to do these type of things, maybe things where you feel overqualified. If you approach these things with that attitude, then this is not going to happen. These organizations are working like so hard in order to succeed in an environment where it's so hard to succeed. The last thing that they need is someone that think I'm overqualified in order to help out. Obviously, we do not want that this is like the default, or this is like 80% of your fellowship is done is like spent on a task where you have to help out. But I would say up to a third of your time is acceptable that you work on things that were not specified previously, where you feel that you might be overqualified. It's very important that you dive into this local hands-on culture where you're also flexible when things are changing, where you are flexible to adapt to new jobs, to changing priorities. I think that's an extremely important part of an ICAT once on the ground. Obviously, what you should not do, I mentioned that, become a dependency in the organization. ICATs are normally also not responsible for any outcomes of the organization, so there's never like a one ICAT to blame for not achieving, for example, investment objectives that are required by us, like milestones defined in the investment memorandum that are required to be met in order to get paid out of the next tranche of a loan, for example. We don't are very happy if like a CEO comes to us and tells us that because the ICats Fellow didn't perform, they couldn't meet the investment targets. So ultimately there is still a management team in the organization that is in charge of the operational results of the organization. ICAT should also not replace the need for permanent hires, so you should train local talents, but we accept like, some exceptions that we had. We don't usually send in ICATS Fellows in the same role over and over and over again. And definitely you're not just another volunteer, you are someone who works with the management team of the organization in scaling up the organization. But that also requires hard work and on-the-ground work, flexibility, and things that you maybe have not done before. What to expect? I mentioned already that it's hard work, and despite the fact that all of you are like highly motivated to make a difference, ICATS engagements are sometimes a bit less romantic as they sound. It's not that you that you work with the beneficiaries every day, that you go home and you feel that this warm and hearty feeling that you save children, for example, through the work. You often work in an office environment. You work with organizations on challenging situations. But it is hard work, and it is hard to succeed in a different environment, in an environment where resources are not as available as you might have experienced that in your previous life or in your current job. So it is like an ICATS engagement involves a lot of challenges and requires a lot of flexibility, and that's why we say that if you're not fully committed to the cause of making a difference in this world, then it will be hard. So if you do it because you want to be live a year in another country, you probably will not succeed. Yeah, expect challenges and conflicts, and if you don't, conflicts, personal conflicts because different work styles, different management styles, different cultures like clash together. You have to be aware that this will happen. It's not always like extremely unpleasant. It's just like two new people need to find how to work together. But so you get like tools from our side to identify them, to be aware of these situations. But if you don't address them, then they can have a significant negative impact on your fellowship. And what's also important to understand, even if I'm quite content with saying that the time and the effort and the know-how we put in order to identify portfolio organizations ensures that organizations that we engage with are like probably amongst the best social organizations out there. It's nevertheless not close to what you experience so far in the private sector job. So even like the best organizations have a lot less experienced people working there, a lot less tools and frameworks in place. Maybe even like management decisions are made more ad hoc as you would have as you experienced it before. So just be a bit realistic that you will work with a professional team, but it will not be the same as working for a consulting company or for a car company or anything like that. It's also important that you already that you are flexible in regards to your role, because your role will definitely change over time. Because you work in an entrepreneurial, almost like startup-like environment, and things change. It doesn't necessarily mean, or it doesn't mean at all that if you come as a finance expert that you will work in marketing, but you might work what happened like this year with one fellow, where at the time where the fellowship the fellow was nominated to the program last year. The focus was still on growing the organization quite significantly this year, but then due to some changes in donor relations and some changes in the management team, there was a decision that 2013 will be more a consolidation year. And this person still works in the same function, but just like on different topics. And this, I can already tell you right now, you have to have this flexibility that your scope of your work will change. Yeah, and last but not least, repeat again, you might belong to the most experienced people in the team. So sometimes the management team needs to do something. They don't have people who have the experience in a specific topic, so they look at the most experienced people that they have, and they might choose you. But you can also like see it as an honor that they choose you to work on specific things. And again, there's nobody else maybe in the organization who can do it. So you need to bring this flexibility to the program. Key learnings in the first 5 years, be patient. Fellows that start with the organization and come in with like a typical management attitude, like if you get a new job and then within the first 100 days you have to come up with like the analysis and like a structured plan and like everything like planned out. In some situations that might not be advisable, because a lot of the organization that we have in our portfolio, you will reach a lot more if you spend the first couple of weeks, maybe even month, in building up good relationships with the team and with the management. And once you created this foundation, you will be able to get access to the real information, get access to the real maybe obstacles that you have to overcome in order to be successful in the organization. So change requires time, and that's something that we make very explicit to the fellows. Yeah, entrepreneurial, startup-like organizational culture. Again, we require flexibility and hands-on mentality. If you don't have that, if you're not able or willing to do this, I don't see a chance that you succeed in this fellowship. Talked about the good relationship just a minute ago. You also have to respect the local and the organizational culture. It sounds trivial, but if you go there and you think like, yeah, but in a professional setup you would do it like this or that, or you should have this and this in place. If you come with this attitude, it will be hard to succeed. You have to understand a different way of working. You have to understand maybe what's acceptable in a specific culture, and only if you respect that and you can transform your know-how into the context of this culture, then you will be successful. Speaking local language is imperative often, and I repeat happily again that you must be highly cost-driven in order to manage the challenges to succeed in these organizations. In talking about challenges or success, I think what we also learned over the last 2 to 3 years, is that fellowships are not only successful if you deliver on all the objectives that were defined in the beginning of the fellowship. Because yes, on the one hand we do the fellowship and we engage with people like you in order to increase the impact of our investments, to support the organizations in achieving the investment targets, in increasing their capacity to reach as many people as possible with their positive solutions. But then on the other hand, we also have a strong interest in providing a personal development journey for you, so that you get excited about the cause, that you get even more passionate about the cause, that you're getting even more skilled with your in-the-field experience in order to become a change agent towards a better world for the rest of your life. And actually, if you would ask me if I had to choose one or the other, for me it would be more important that you internalize the need and what it takes to create positive change in this world for the rest of your life, rather than fulfilling all objectives within 1 year of the fellowship. I think overall, the people that go through an experience where they are not so happy with their professional contribution, often they learn most on a personal level, and they often come out like stronger and motivated and know better what they want, and like maybe also learn what doesn't work and what they think will work. So, and carefully saying, a negative experience with the fellowship can still have a very positive outcome for your personal development. So keep that in mind when you're nominated to the program. We will obviously talk a lot more about that in the preparation workshop. There is there was a question around training throughout the fellowship year. Obviously we have the orientation workshop. I already mentioned the mentoring. On top of that, we are in the process of formalizing a bit more what we already did over the course of this year. We are in the process of setting up the LGT VP Academy, where we provide online trainings to people in the ICats cohort. So what we did already this year, we provided like an overview of the impact investing space. We also talked about due diligence. We will still talk about impact measurement. There were presentations about negotiation techniques. or like social franchising models. Not all of these presentations and trainings necessarily have to come from the LGT VP team. Some of these training sessions are held by ICats themselves, but in the end it doesn't matter who is like doing the training. If you can learn something from these trainings from people that have experience in these topics, then I think it will be very valuable to you. We also think about like a certificate that people who ran through the different trainings at the end of the year can get, like an LGT VP Academy certificate, which could an interesting additional qualification or add-on to your CV for further career planning. Good. So these were the main aspects of the fellowship itself. I now again go through sent-in questions and see if there are any outstanding questions that I haven't covered. Okay, just to repeat it again, the question, what is compensation of stipend given to the candidates while attending the ICats program? Does it reflect market prices in the same job family? No. There is no job family that is comparable to that, because despite the fact that you work in a specific domain and you have to have a certain experience, we don't compare like a fellowship position with maybe the salary that someone would get in the organization or in a different organization with that level of experience. Any cost the candidates have to bear while attending the program. We cover the cost that we think that you need in order to get through this year. Obviously, if you want to live in a more in a nicer apartment or in a better area of the city, or if you want to fly home 2 or 3 times a year, then this has to be paid out of your own pocket. Okay. Okay. Talked about that. Yes, a question specific to the Accelerator program. What kind of support the selected organizations need the most during the Accelerator process? It's also hard to say, because it really depends on the situation that the organization is in. Some organization needed more market research, more know-how around the need from the clients for their products or services. Other organizations, they just needed to strengthen their systems and processes. Other organizations needed to become much clearer about the impact that they intend to create, because that was like vital for attracting further funding, and also not only to attract further funding, but also to develop their products and services further. So it's hard to say what's needed most, and that's why we don't look for a accelerator marketing expert, but we look for an accelerator business consultant expert, because people with that background are usually trained to advise companies in a more broader sense than people who are experts in a specific domain. Does the Accelerator program monitor or receive information about the impacting performance of the organization after the acceleration period ended? I cannot answer that question, because we started the Accelerator in 2011, so we are just like in the second year of acceleration, so there were no accelerators where we ended the process yet. But the goal of the accelerator program is that we make these organizations investment ready for the main LGT VP portfolio. So if these organizations succeed during the acceleration, and then there's a good chance that these organizations get further funding from LGT VP through the main portfolio. What are the common challenges that the fellows often face during the program? I parked this question because I have a slide for that later on. So I'll answer this question in a second. Yes, I think there's one question that asked, like, did LGT or partner company refund travel costs? I mentioned like the general travel remuneration policy. If you have to travel for business, so if the organization or during the acceleration process you have to travel, obviously either the host organization or we are covering these business expenses. So this is not to be paid out of your stipend. You might have to kind of like prepay, but you get reimbursed within 1 week. After when you expense these costs. Yes, so these questions are covered. Okay, then I think there are some more questions. There are some more questions sent to, through to me. There's okay. One question about the career path after fellowship program. We touch upon that in a second. Okay, no more questions. So let's continue with the presentation about some information about what fellows do after the fellowship. So on that slide, on the right-hand side, that you can focus on, you see 5 examples of what people did after their fellowship. So Verena, she is an ex-colleague of mine at BMW. She worked with Angan Trust in India as a marketing and communications fellow, and after her time she joined BMW again and was then managing a team in sustainability strategy and management within BMW. Matt, for example, he was working with Healthy Cities Group in Lima, Peru. He's now with USAID and became like an investment advisor for the African Private Capital Fund. Pascal, he's from Switzerland. He worked actually for the same company as I worked in South Africa. He, after his engagement in 2010, has stayed in South Africa and co-founded the company Impact Amplifier, which aims to accelerate high-impact SMEs in sub-Saharan Africa. Rama was actually a fellow of mine. He worked with Hus Power Systems in Bihar in India as a fellow. and then stayed on with the organization. So he's still with Haas Power Systems since 2010 in a permanent position as a Senior Director for Training and Technical Aggregation. And maybe one last example, Andre, he has a legal background and after some time with the UBS and other banks here in Switzerland, he joined the fellowship program in 2011. He was with Mothers to Mothers in South Africa, and now he joined Responsibility. That's an impact investor here in Zurich, and he's now advising them legally on all equity investments that they do on impact businesses. So these are like some examples of what fellows do afterwards. What do we do? Maybe to give you insight in order to promote our fellows. I mean, obviously we have a high interest that the people that went through our fellowship take on opportunities in that sector after the fellowship. So next to all the marketing that we do around the ICats program and all the material that we provide to the network of LGT VP, which demonstrates the quality of work that ICats Fellows provide and the impact that they have. And this year we launched our impact reports on our website, where you have like a get quite a good sense of a number of ICats that were what their contribution was to the company where they worked. So these activities obviously help. Also, I can only put emphasis on it again and again. The blog is a powerful tool where our ICats Fellows can demonstrate by writing blog entries how professional they work, on which topic they work. So if you get nominated to this program, I can only highly encourage you to look into the blog and to use this as a tool to kind of like showcase your dedication, your skills, and your professionalism and your insights that you obtained during your fellowship, in order to use it as another source of reference if you apply afterwards. So the marketing that we do has quite some exposure in this market. And next to that more generic promotion of the program, we started last year to create a dossier where all the fellows that are interested in profiling them to our community, we're creating, you could call it like a yearbook, like like similar to what you know from like business schools, where you have like your yearbooks where you profile like who you are, like what's your vision, like what's your background, what are you aiming to do. And this dossier, we call it dossier, not the yearbook, because not all of the people are highlighted there, because some already have jobs or some return to their private sector jobs where they worked before. But the people who are interested in staying in that sector, and that's actually the majority, they can profile themselves in such a dossier, which we send out 2 to 3 times through our newsletter to our network in the philanthropic sector. So that's a good way of showing the community out there that you're available, and if you have done a good job and maybe you did some self-promotion, then that could help you to gain a job in that sector. There's one thing that is very important, and I think that's fair to mention that. I think to stay in that sector where not so many jobs are available, I think, again, you have to bring some flexibility in regards to the location where you work. I mean, in my case, I come from Munich. After my fellowship, joined LGT VP here in Zurich, so moving from Munich to Zurich was required. And even if that's like not a huge distance, I just want to point out that maybe in your case you are from India, and maybe you find something in on the Philippines, or you are from Peru and you find something in South Africa. So it doesn't have to be always like across the oceans, but be prepared if you want to work in that sector, that flexibility in regards to your home base might be required. If you bring that flexibility, I'm very confident that the fellowship is a good gateway for people who want to transition in that sector, and not only a gateway but also a good qualification through your long time on the ground with a good organization and within the context of the LGT VP investment team and investment approach. I think you gain quite a significant experience, and that should be helpful when applying to jobs afterwards. Last slide, and then we have a couple of more minutes for additional questions. What was it? Just a second. Good. Sorry for that. You should see my screen again. So here are some statistics around the ICats program, because there were some questions about how many people succeed, how many people stay in the sector. So I think two-thirds, some generic feedback that we got through surveys of our participants, like about two-thirds rate their overall experience above their expectations. So despite the challenges and maybe also the emotional valleys that they had to go through, in the end, two-thirds say yes, that was above my expectation. I really I got a lot more out of it than they initially expected. Also, two-thirds of the participants report a good match between them and their organization. So I think the intensive selection process that is time-consuming, but that is also necessary to find the right matches. I think is kind of like backed with this percentage and justified by this percentage. Something obviously that makes me very happy is that almost 9 out of 10 people would recommend the ICats program to others. So I think most people really like what they experience. We talked about the challenges. I think many ICats, when you see 58% have problems with intransparent decision making. I mean, many of the leaders within the organizations set up the organizations from nothing. They're extremely passionate about the cause. It's their baby, to say it a bit I don't know, I'm missing the word. It's their baby, so sometimes decisions are made maybe in a way that you are not used to it, and maybe you don't like it. I experienced that on my own, many fellows experience it, so I will be prepared that sometimes you find out about a decision where maybe it would have been good to involve you because you might have been able to add good input for the decision making, but you were not asked because maybe the CEO or the top management team just made the decision, and maybe even worse, did not communicate the decision. That's unfortunately sometimes reality. Also, the organization's leadership style, fast changing, so it's again similar, a bit like a similar issue, like priorities change quickly. It's sometimes opportunistic, where people who come out of like a company where like long-term planning was like imperative and was like very strong, integrated in the processes and the thinking of the people of the organization, often struggle with this opportunistic startup-like approach. Senior management availability is also often reported as an issue because you need some guidance, and even if you get guidance from our mentors, still you obviously need more input from local organizations. So, and as they work like over hours and are involved in so many different things, which is normal for companies that are strongly growing, there's not always the bandwidth to work you as intensively as you would probably would like it to be. So a strong capability of working independently, and this skill of like getting the information that you need, even if you have to like really actively fight for it in quotes, that's also a very helpful skill to bring to the fellowship. And lack of resources, I mean lack of money, lack of experienced people, lack of systems, that's also some of the key challenges that people face. And then next to these maybe more not technical challenges, but on a personal level, I think some countries are easier to integrate, some countries are tougher to integrate. I leave that up to you. I mean, you know how it, how maybe friends of you who lived in Latin America or lived in Africa or lived in India, in Asia, there are different challenges. Depends a bit on you personally, what you like and what you don't like. But the first couple of weeks, a month in the country where you have to set up your life there can be also quite challenging. Yeah, and I think that 78% consider the program as a helpful career step for themselves into a more meaningful job. I think it's also a good statistic to show and to highlight what the program offers to its participants. So I think that's it from my side. I go through the last outstanding questions that were sent in, and to some more questions that might forwarded to me through your chat, and then then we come to the end of this webinar. One question was around like the time after the fellowship, like upon completion of the program, what are the organizations that are affiliated or linked with ICats and become likely prospective offices of the graduates? I mean, the 95% of the organizations that are linked with the ICats program are portfolio organizations of LGT VP. So yes, there are some people who actually end up with a portfolio organization. So there is the chance that if the organization provides you a permanent position and you decide that based on their package you are happy to work with them in the country, that's a feasible option. Does not always happen, but we had a couple of cases where it actually happened like this. I mean, Rama, the guy from India who is still with Husk Power Systems, is a good example. Cynthia, who worked with me in Cape Town in 2009 with Mothers to Mothers, was also working for the company as a freelancer, as a consultant after her fellowship for quite a while. So yes, that's an option. And the organizations are mainly the portfolio organizations of LGT VP. What is the percentage of successful applicants for each year in the past of the whole ICats program? I'm not 100% sure successful in regards to the nominations, or like the ratio between people who applied in comparison to people who get actually nominated. So last year, I would say 1 out of 15 people have been, like 1 out of 15 applicants have been nominated to the program. So we had about 20 nominations last year, and I think we had around 300 applications. So I think the ratio is calculated correctly in my head. In regards to successfully finishing the fellowship program, when we talk about do people fail, if you, I don't like the word fail because of what I showed to you before, because like even if people finish the fellowship program prior to the estimated or the normal termination date, I think even there people gained a lot, and I would not call it a failure, because you made the step out of your comfort zone. You tried something new. You tried to make it happen. So I think you gained a lot personally, and I don't consider these cases as failures. So far, we had actually only one person that stopped the program earlier, but this was due to like a very positive reason, because this person was nominated to Harvard Business School, and the person didn't really expect that to happen. So he asked us to stop the fellowship program, and he reimbursed us for the costs that were generated through the early termination of his program, and then he was able to join Harvard Business School. And we had 3 cases where people actually were transferred, 4 cases, transferred to another organization after initial problems. So sometimes people just can't work alongside. There's just no fit, and sometimes, unfortunately, you only find out when you see each other in person, when you work together. So we had a couple of cases, I think 4 or 5, where people got out of their initial organization, but we were in these cases able to find alternative engagements for the rest of the fellowship. And so in that case, I also wouldn't consider these cases as failures. It's just shift to another organization, and most of the time these people had quite a fulfilling time afterwards, after they were placed in an organization where there was a better personal match. And the rest of the people finished their fellowships in their organizations, and of course there are some ones who over-exceeded our expectations, and some people that did a great job, and some people who just did a normal job. But I think all of them did contribute to the organization's success. So overall, I would say a very low rate of people who experience severe difficulties. And I think one reason why that is that through our mentoring, we can always step in if there is a conflict between the ICAT and the organization, and through our in-between role, usually we are able to mitigate the conflicts and find solutions and get people to a rational level again when they become quite emotional. So that's one of the key strengths, I think, from the mentorship that comes with the ICats Fellowship Program. Good, no more questions here. I talked about the main challenges that people face. And then a personal question, I noticed someone asked that he noticed that I was a former fellow, and if I moved directly from the ICATS assignment to the director position of the ICATS program, or if I had some other NGO assignments in between. In my case, I directly transitioned into the director of the ICATS program position. Yes, and then one last question, actually that's in regards to the fellowship itself. Do you have examples of a candidate moving to the destined location for the fellowship with his or her partner or spouse? Yes, and I mentioned that before. You just have to be very clear that from our side you will get basic coverage for your costs in regards to housing and in regards to accommodation and in regards to transportation. So if you are financially strong enough to cover the additional costs on your own, or you fundraise that you can go with your family there, then you can do it. But just be aware that that this is an important discussion to have with your partner, and that you have to be very explicit and transparent about what's feasible throughout that year. If you kind of have the I close my eyes and get through somehow through attitude, I think that this will either cause significant issues in your partnership or will end in an early termination of your fellowship. So think about that. We don't have a problem with that. We're just very explicit with what we can offer and what we experience with people that traveled with their families before. So I hope that I covered all questions that were sent in. So give me a last check on the questions that came in online. If there's anything more to add. So there's one question. Thanks. I can see that most positions are or have been filled with professionals with a very strong business background, with MBAs or business undergraduates. Have there been any cases of ICATS Fellows having other backgrounds? I mean, do you have some specific cases or some specific roles? If you're, for example, in a fundraising role, that if you worked previously in an NGO or at a fund, yeah, but let's stay with an NGO, and you've been you bring in a good network, you can demonstrate your fundraising experience, then in such a case I don't think that an MBA or business studies in this specific function are advantageous in comparison to your work experience. So yes, we had people in specific areas they didn't have the qualification that you mentioned. I mean, for example, I originally studied computer science, and I just worked at BMW in project management and operations management for quite a long time. So I'm not an MBA. I don't have like a business undergraduate study, and I was still nominated to the program. So, I mean, similar to the normal recruiting or the normal questions that you ask yourself when you look at permanent positions out there, like often you feel like underqualified, but I mean, everybody is like raising the bar high. So. And you cannot really lose a lot by applying. I mean, sit down, answer those questions. It's even good, I think, to think about those questions even if you don't apply. And yeah, think about it and just try it. I mean, there's nothing you can lose. Okay, we answered that question. So I think there are no more questions outstanding. Okay, I saw that there were like okay, there is okay, there's another question. There's like okay, I can't make any statements about the popularity of fellowship positions and how many applications we receive. You just have to do your best, and the number of applications actually do not influence or increase or decrease your chances. It's like the quality of your application that is influencing that mostly. If someone is from a management background, I think that's I mean, that's positive. I mean, if you have management experience, that means that you have quite a lot of work experience. I don't think that that all of the people that we recruit come from a banking or finance background. I wouldn't agree. I mean, if you look at our cohorts, then you will see that many people have other backgrounds as well. So again, see what fits to your qualification and apply, and then just to play it by ear and see how far your application gets. There is one question: how many options can we get to apply to? I'm considering Southeast Asia alongside with Africa. Probably this question was raised by someone who joined a bit later. So happy to repeat that, that you can apply to one primary job. So this job you can apply to through opening, registering or logging in to our membership portal, selecting the job, and then below at the bottom of the job description there is the apply button, and in the application form, there is you have the opportunity to add 2 more jobs. Please make sure that when you add those jobs that you put in like the exact title and the organization so we can identify them correctly. So yes, you have the opportunity, but you only apply once and you add 2 more in the alternative application section within this one application. Good. Last check. No more questions? Then I thank you for your attendance in this webinar. I hope it was helpful to you. I look forward to receiving many applications from you, and we will send out the presentation of this webinar to you later this week. The webinar will also be available on YouTube and our YouTube channel. That should also happen within the next 1 to 2 days. So thanks a lot for your time and your questions, and talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.